Welcome to the Sober Grind podcast. This is Pej, and I'm here today with Austin Armstrong, and you are listening to the Sober Grind, right?
Yes. Hello, Pej.
Hello. And we have a special show. First of all, I want to thank everybody for the feedback that we got in the last week for our first segment, for our first show.
It was incredible.
And it was incredible. I really enjoyed it thoroughly. And today we have a couple of things that we're going to be talking about. One of them is going to be interventions and how you go about them, what the purpose of them is. There's some questions and answers, but before we get into that, we actually have a new segment to the show. It is called the Recovery Story of the Week. We have my special friend here, Sean, today, who's, I think you almost have 4 years in sobriety?
It'll be 4 years and a little over 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks. All right, great. Sean's going to we're going to, just give him the floor real quick and have him tell us a little bit about his recovery and the recovery story of the week. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, yeah, so my name's Sean. I've been sober since January 2nd of 2014 now. So yeah, a little bit over 2 more weeks. It'll be 4 years. Not the first time I've gotten sober, but I mean, it's definitely the most successful I've been. And start out small town Indiana, perfect life. I mean, couldn't ask for anything else. And of course, like most of small town America now, a little bit of an opiate problem. Started with the painkillers that worked its way up to full-blown intravenous heroin addiction. But I've been intervened on before, and it worked, but I didn't go that time. But I mean, there's no such thing as a failed intervention, which you're going to be covering later. Of course, I had all of the problems that kind of come along with being a drug addict. The arrest for drug-related crimes. I've had the overdose, which nearly took me out. But after that, I was able to find long-lasting recovery. So it's definitely been a blessing, and they're going to be here on the Sober Grind. Definitely an honor. Meet with a couple of great guys and learn more about interventionists.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Appreciate your self-disclosure and telling us about your experience, even with the minimal amount of time.
This is also going to be hopefully a weekly segment as well. So if you would like to be featured on the Recovery Story of the Week, send us an email, leave a comment on any platform that you see this on, and we would love to share your story.
Like I said at the top of the show, we're going to be talking about interventions, and Austin's got some wonderful questions that he's prepared for me, and I'm going to try to answer them to the best of my ability. Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, we're going to just jump right in. So, Pej, I know you work as an interventionist. Would you mind explaining to our audience that maybe don't know what it is? What is?
Sure. Obviously, when somebody is probably requiring recovery, or they're deep in their disease of addiction or alcoholism, often they don't even know that they're engulfed in the abyss, for better sake of words, of their addiction to the point where everybody sees it but them. So family members may see it, people in the workplace may see it, but the actual addict alcoholic might be in such a state of denial. After all, denial is not just a river in Egypt. A lot of people don't realize that that they're not doing well. Even sometimes people are just oblivious to it after job loss or after certain situations that may happen. They may still think that they have everything under control, and truly they don't have everything under control. There's a lot of issues within the family. A lot of kids notice it. A lot of kids aren't stupid. As kids as low of an age as 3 and 4 years old know that daddy or mommy aren't well. Yeah. So often somebody needs to intervene, and often it can't be the husband or the wife. It can't be the grandparents. It can't be the parents, because don't you already know that the addict alcoholic has heard it so many times, the way that they're being talked to. They don't want to be lectured. They don't want people to point out their glaring defects of character. They don't want people to call them out and let them know like they're not doing well. So oftentimes somebody such as an interventionist needs to come in and intervene, however that may be. And there are many different ways that can be tailored and put together into a proper plan to, and hopefully have a successful intervention in letting this person know, hey, your life is not running right. This is how you're affecting people, and how can we help you? So yeah.
Yeah, that kind of explains my next question a little bit, but maybe if you could go a little more in depth of why do you think they work so well? Why do you think interventions work so well with the individual?
Well, I think that they work so well because obviously, usually the interventionist has a lot of experience themselves. Perhaps they were once an addict, alcoholic, in active addiction, who somebody intervened on them, so they
I
had
see.
that moment of clarity,
Mm-hmm.
that aha moment.
Yeah.
You know that where they come to Jesus, like they basically realize, wow, like this person just got through to me. So then they want to carry that on to somebody else, and then it becomes common practice. Like if they see that they can successfully help certain people get the appropriate help that they need, then it's rewarding. It's nice to see a good intervention go down to the point where you can get through to that person that's suffering and have them figure out their own breaking point and turning point into where they actually want to, besides just entertaining the thought, which a lot of addicts and alcoholics in their active addiction think about, I want to get the help, but they know something's not right, but they don't know how to go about it. So an interventionist is key. It's like a key figure and a key person that could show you, the pathway on seeing and actually seeing where you're coming short in life, recognizing your difficulties. Often the interventionist will put together the family and have them write everything out in letters and come together as a whole and present the letters and talk about how they're all affected, but everybody's got to be on the same page. And before you know it, all of a sudden something might happen within that person, the person that's suffering, to where they think, oh my God, like I've always wanted this, I've always needed this. I'm so happy that finally, like I get to get out of this abyss of addiction and go and get the help that I need.
Yeah, it seems like a really powerful starting point for the recovery process.
It is indeed.
That's awesome.
It is.
So what are some of the intervention techniques that you have seen in your experience work?
Often, I believe that, well, usually an intervention can be like a roller coaster ride.
How so?
Because it'll start off, for one, the person who you're intervening on, you've already got the family and everybody on board, so you've coached them on what to say, the do's, the don'ts, and all that. You've got all the letters prepared and everything, and usually the person that you're intervening on is caught off guard, or they are they're very surprised, like, oh, what is going on here? Like, who's this guy? Like, what? And if you go and approach that person in a certain way, you have to make them feel comfortable. You have to let them know that, so my name is so and so. I'm Pej. I'm here today. Your family has brought me in. We wanted to have a little talk with you. Don't be caught off guard, even though you are. But I just wanted to, just make things apparent for you and talk to you a little bit about, what's going on with you. How's it going? And so right there, you have a calm tone. But the second that they start hearing, once you introduce the family members and say, well, your sister feels this way, well, your girlfriend feels this way, well, your mother feels this way, then all of a sudden, during the letter process, especially when they're reading their letters, a lot of emotions will flow. So there will be people that are crying, as they're reading the letter, and sometimes the addict alcoholic will, not even pay them no mind. I mean, to the point where they're emotionless. They don't know how to feel. They've been bogging down their emotions and their feelings with drugs and alcohol for so long, they're just numbed out. Sometimes they will break out in tears themselves. They'll become highly emotional. So it all depends. Sometimes they'll get angry. They'll be like, they don't want to hear this. Like that's the last thing they want to hear. It's definitely a buzzkill. It's like putting a damper on their disease. And most people that are in their disease of addiction, the last thing that their disease wants is to hear this person telling them and exposing them and telling them the truth about who they've been, So they could react in several different ways just in the letter process with it itself. Then after a period of time, when you actually sit down and everybody, the dust settles and we want to see where the person is with everything, and the ultimatums have been set forth, and you won't be living here anymore, unless you want to get the help, or you don't have a place in our lives unless you want to get the help, well, then the person can react differently. Sometimes it can be very easy. The person may be at the point in their life where they're totally licked. I mean, they're just tired of living the way that they've been living. They've been waiting for this for a long time. You're like their saving grace, and now they're ready to actually just move forward. What do you got for me? I'm completely, absolutely, completely destroyed. I'm ready for you to just guide me in the right direction. Those are the if everybody reacted that way in interventionists in interventions, I may be out of a job. But if actually there will be times when the people become combative, they will become upset. So that's where the part of the roller coaster ride goes up, 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 and then down, down, down.
Yeah,
I mean, it's to the point where there may be some volatile interactions where they're yelling at each other or they start getting angry, and then it's the interventionist jobs to kind of just like simmer the room down, just to make sure that the emotions don't fly. Oftentimes people will speak out of place. The family members will say too much. And you want to let them know in advance, like, this is what you say, be clear and concise. This is what you want to say, and you just keep it at that. Because the intervention can go very well if they hold their boundaries and hold their ground and just keep it to where they just say, this is where I stand, this is how I feel, and this is what you must do.
Less is more approach.
Less is much more approach. But if they keep on going on and rambling and saying the same thing that they've been hearing all their lives,
what's going to change?
Nothing's going to change. So if nothing changes, nothing changes. So truly, it can go up, it can go down. But what I often see in a lot of interventions is no matter how many times the roller coaster goes up and down, it has to end at a certain point. And that's where the interventionist can just cap it off and just say, okay, so this is where your family's at with this. This is where you're at. What do you think? Where can we go from there? And sometimes, it can either, it's 50-50. Sometimes it goes very well, and sometimes the person just tells you, get out of my house, get out of my face, I'm out of here, I'll pack my bags, I'm out of here, I'll leave. And then often the interventionist can continue to try to talk to them and say, are you sure this is a good idea? Maybe it's not good to make that rash decision in the heat of the moment, but we're just trying to help you, that's all we came here for today. It's not because we're against you, it's because we want to try to help you get your life back. So it's very necessary, and it can be very, very successful. I wish all interventions were successful, because then we would have a lot more people getting help. And unfortunately, some people just don't want to hear it. And some people are still enabled by their families. That's where it becomes a miserable fail, because families don't want to hold their end of the bargain, which goes to show often why the person being intervened on is so caught up and so sick in their disease.
So let's continue on that a little bit. So say an intervention is pretty successful, you get the individual to go into treatment to start their recovery journey. What are some of the next steps for the family? What do they need to do to change?
That's a great question. I think that often interventionists need to always keep the family in mind and realize that this person that they're intervening on obviously was part of a family system. After all, when it comes to addiction and alcoholism, it's a family disease. It's not just the person. As I was just saying a second ago, some of the reasons that this person is so sick is because the family's so sick. The person may be addicted to drugs and alcohol. The family's addicted to the person. And the family's always trying to be the controller, the mediator, the overseer. So often the family can be seen and perceived as sicker than the individual, even though without the drugs and alcohol, right?
Wow.
So I've seen, and this in more recent times, I've actually seen the interventionists not just guide the family in the right direction. I mean, they'll send them to the traditional Al-Anon meetings and things like that. That's great, right? Do a lot of people do those 12-step groups? No, a lot of the families are so sick, they think that, no, Jimmy was the sick one. He needed the help. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't need to go to those meetings, right? Or they'll go to the meetings and they'll hear like A, B, and C, all these different stories that don't match up with theirs. And they think, well, feel sorry for those people. But really, truly, it is their ultimate duty to get as involved in recovery as their loved one is, so that they too can help work on themselves and break through the clutches of codependency, of enabling, of always trying to save the person, because truly, at the end of the day, that stuff is all just selfish stuff anyway. They're doing that because it makes them feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
And I've also seen some interventionists put, after doing an intervention, recommend and put certain family members in their own treatment.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I've seen people
Wow.
go to treatment primarily for codependency.
Oh, I
For
believe it.
codependency
Yeah.
only.
Uh-huh.
I believe there's some treatment center or something like that that
That
works on
Wow.
codependency.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a lot of stubborn and hesitation from the parents' end or
Often.
family members? Yeah.
All the time. You have to understand, I'm Iranian, I'm Persian. So in our community, I mean, a lot of people have this pompous, arrogant perspective, like they think they know it all, right? So they like they're above it all. I'm a renowned doctor or physician or lawyer. I'm not the one with the problem. He's the problem. Truly, they are the problem. They are the problem because they've got all this money that they've handed down to their kid, and basically the kid has not lived up to their expectations, hasn't become as educated as them, hasn't gotten to the caliber of what they are in life on paper, or successfully, and then probably never will be. Therefore, he's gone and taken all their money and just pretty much pissed it off, right? And now these people think that, why should I need to get help? Why do I need to work on myself? We've already put him in treatment. I don't need help. Just leave me alone. My job is done here. I wrote the letter for you. They think it just ends at that. That's not even, that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
You have just barely touched the surface of what you need to do as far as a parent of a suffering addict alcoholic, and what really, in order to go forward, they really need to find that level of humility that they desire their kid to have in them staying sober. If they were to do the work the way they expect their kid to do it, there's actually a family unit that can work and function well together, and they can actually communicate. A level of communication will open up that they've never endured or ever been able to witness or be a part of their lives.
That's incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So as far as the family dynamic that should actually attend the intervention, who do you think should attend? Is there a maximum number of people? Is there a minimum? Is it Aunt Sally, the distant aunt that never is around? Is it just close, intimate family?
I think the people that are closest to the family members, the ones that live in the house or are around the person or have been seeing the person deteriorate, and the ones that are more instrumental in the person's life, often you want to see what the relationship is more personally, but you want to see like what kind of history do they have. There may be some family member that's just no good, like it's going to make the intervention fail right off the bat because Uncle Jerry may have done something to this person that every time they see Uncle Jerry, they fall apart. They want nothing to do with him. What, now you're going to bring him together with other family members that they don't really care for or want to hear from, and because this guy's in the room, you think that's going to be like a turning point or no, it's actually going to probably make him rebel more and just be like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I'm out of here, and get up and storm out.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So it's not about the more the merrier. It's about having the people that are the most closest to, that won't put the risk of the person in the intervention in a position where they will not be able to actually want to make a change in their lives. You want just a few key members that the person will respond best to, or that will actually sit down and listen to the person and express themselves.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I hope
No, this is great. I'm learning a lot. Okay. I hope everyone is learning a lot too, I'm sure. So when would you say is the perfect time to call an interventionist for help? Say you catch your son or daughter with drugs one time. Should you call then? Should you wait until it's a really apparent problem? When's that real sweet spot to get help?
I think the sweet spot to get help is obviously when you've run out of options. When you're beating a dead horse and you have tried and tried and tried and tried to get through to your loved one, whoever it may be, a husband, wife, brother, sister, child, whatever. If you are constantly trying to help them, and to the point where your mouth is dry and you can't, it's like you got to have somebody step in and perhaps a professional step in that will be able to hopefully be effective, more effective, and say more to them than you've been able to. Because if you can't get through to them, you can't squeeze blood from a turnip, right? I mean, you're not going to get anything out of this. You can try and try and try, but if you see that they're still in their active addiction or alcoholism, what do you think? Like, it's time. It's time to call someone. How do you find a proper interventionist? Call me. If I can't help you, I've got a number of people that off the top of my head that I know would be the most effective, and they would definitely come in and do what, the job would be done as the job should be done, as the interventionist would wholeheartedly do. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all that information. I want to leave off on a really positive note too. Can you think off the top of your head if you've experienced any really successful intervention stories?
Yes, actually, we had a young gentleman that was, I believe he was out in Bakersfield, and he was homeless.
Okay.
And he had been homeless for a period of time. He was a young man, probably in his early 20s. I think he was homeless for like a year, and his parents were always worried about him. They would often go try to talk to him, convince him to get help. He was panhandling. He was selling his body for drugs, and it was really sad. So the family asked, they didn't want to see him die on the streets.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they said that they've been trying and trying and trying, and they asked us to come out and help him. And so I went and I sat with him. At first, he just seemed like a shell of a human being. He didn't even seem like he had it in him to carry on a regular conversation. But he did have this certain particular look in his eyes, like although hopeless, still hopeful,
still
a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
And in having a conversation with him on the first round and first try, there wasn't much of a conversation, but he did say in that conversation that he would think about it. So then we went back and we talked to him again about a week later, and after talking to him, we brought him into a home, and he was a character. There was a lot of different things that this guy would do, and he did them because I think he had just become so accustomed to the streets and living on the streets that, for example, he liked sleeping outside on the patio in January. Right?
Oh my gosh, so cold.
He liked it. He was used to it. That was just his way of life. He liked eating out of the trash. It was just
to each their own.
I think it was just a way of life for him. But he ended up staying in that house for a while. He got some solid sobriety, and now he is a stand-up guy that wears.
That's amazing.
He puts on a shirt and tie, and he goes to work, and he has a job, and he's paying his rent. He's self-supporting, and he has a car, and and now I think last time I talked to him, he said he was dating somebody, which was pretty amazing for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he really worked through a lot of his stuff. We definitely set him in the direction of going into like the right recovery community, and I think he was doing a lot of AA and NA and things like that. But yeah, it's things like that are the most rewarding, and the most things that I live for in recovery is to see the success stories and people come from nothing and turn it around and truly become something.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And so motivational. It's warming my heart. I hope that warmed all of your hearts as well. There is always hope.
There always is hope.
Always hope.
Always.
Pej, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank you
this
very
was,
much.
Incredible again.
Yet another great episode of The Sober Grind.
Sober Grind. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is made possible by Beginnings Treatment Centers. If you need any addiction help at all, they are incredible and would love to communicate with you. You can call them directly at 800-387-6907 or visit them online at beginningstreatment.com. We also have a wonderful online Facebook support community called Ask an Addiction Specialist. You can join in there and directly communicate with addiction specialists and get all the support you need. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/ask an addiction specialist. Thank you again, Pej. Sober Grind out.
Thank you.